Your memories might be fake. Think about your most cherished childhood memory. That time you won a trophy, your first trip to the beach, or the smell of your grandmother's kitchen. It feels real, doesn't it? Like a perfect video you can replay in your mind. What if I told you that memory might be a lie? Not a little white lie, but a complete fabrication. A story your own brain wrote and then convinced you was true. For one man, a single vivid memory of a childhood event was the driving force behind his entire life's work, a memory that never actually happened. This isn't science fiction. This is the unsettling, fascinating, and deeply human world of false memories. And by the end of this, you might just start to question some of your own. Section 1. The glitches in your mind's eye. We tend to think of our memory like a perfect recording device, a high-fidelity camera that captures our experiences, files them away, and lets us replay them exactly as they happened. But that's not really how it works. What if your memory is less like a camera and more like a Wikipedia page, a collaborative document that can be edited over time by you, by others, and sometimes by mistake? Let's start with a simple test. Picture the classic Monopoly man, rich Uncle Pennybags. What's he wearing? A top hat, a suit, and a monocle, right? That little piece of glass over one eye. Most people remember it vividly. The only problem is, he has never officially worn a monocle in the standard version of the game. This is a classic example of the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where a large group of people shares the same false memory. Think of Darth Vader's iconic line from The Empire Strikes Back. Many are certain he says, "Luke, I am your father." But the actual line is, "No, I am your father." It's a small change, but it reveals a fundamental truth. Our collective memory is flawed. These aren't just trivia night errors. They're windows into how your brain builds the past. These glitches happen because memory isn't a process of retrieval. It's a process of reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, you aren't just pulling a file from a drawer. You are actively rebuilding it, piecing it together from fragments of information stored all over your brain. And in that process, things can get creative. Your brain might fill in gaps with logical assumptions, borrow details from other memories, or even incorporate things you learned after the event. The result is a memory that feels completely real, but is, in fact, a remix of the past. It's a story your brain tells itself, and with every retelling, that story becomes more convincing. So how does your own mind become such an unreliable narrator? Section 2. The science of invented pasts. The journey into understanding false memory really begins with one pioneering researcher, Elizabeth Loftus. Since the 1970s, her groundbreaking experiments have completely changed how we think about the past. Her most famous study is the car crash experiment. Participants watched videos of car accidents and were then asked questions. She asked one group, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And another, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The results were astounding. The group that heard smashed not only estimated the cars were going faster, but a week later, they were twice as likely to falsely remember seeing broken glass that wasn't there. This is called the misinformation effect. It shows that changing a single word can alter someone's memory of an event. Information you get after an event doesn't just add to a memory. It can actively overwrite it, like a software update that corrupts the original file. But Loftus took it a step further. If you can alter a memory, can you create one from scratch? This led to the famous "lost in the mall" experiment. Researchers interviewed a participant about real childhood events, but they slipped in a fake one. A detailed story about the participant getting lost in a mall as a child. At first, most people didn't remember it, but with a little suggestion, a disturbing number of people began to not only accept the memory, but add their own details. The original study famously found that about 25% of participants adopted this false memory. However, modern science has added some important nuance. A 2025 reanalysis of a major 2023 replication study took a closer look at the data. It found that implanting a completely fabricated, detailed memory is much harder than it first appeared. In fact, the reanalysis noted that about half of the participants who were thought to have formed a false memory were likely latching onto a real memory of being lost at a different time or place. But the core finding remains robust. Our brains can still be coaxed into creating rich, detailed recollections of things that never happened. A key biological process behind this is known as memory reconsolidation. To put it simply, when you recall a memory, your brain doesn't just read the file, it opens it for editing. For a short time, the memory becomes unstable. During this window, new information, like a suggestion, can get mixed in before the memory is saved again. This isn't a bug. It's a feature that lets us update our knowledge. But it's a feature with some dangerous consequences. Section 3. When fake memories shape real lives. This fallibility isn't just a psychological quirk. It has devastating real-world implications, especially in the justice system. For decades, eyewitness testimony was seen as the gold standard of evidence. But the work of Loftus and others has shown it can be catastrophically unreliable. An eyewitness who is confident on the stand may be remembering details fed to them by a leading question, something they saw on the news, or a face from a different context. The Innocence Project reports that mistaken eyewitness identification played a role in about 69% of wrongful convictions that were later overturned by DNA evidence. These are people who lost decades of their lives in prison because of someone's confident but false memory. It gets even darker. Suggestive interrogation techniques can not only alter a witness's memory, but can also lead to entirely false confessions. Under stress, sleep deprivation, and authoritative pressure, people can become so confused that they confess to crimes they didn't commit, sometimes even creating vivid narratives to explain how they did it. But the consequences aren't just legal, they're deeply personal. Our memories are the building blocks of our identity. Who you are is largely a story you tell yourself about your past. So what does it mean if your most formative experiences are distorted? Or if a memory you've cherished your whole life is a fiction? This can be profoundly unsettling. It challenges our sense of self. But it's not a sign that your brain is broken. It's a sign that it's human. These memory errors are the byproducts of a dynamic and creative system. Your brain isn't trying to lie to you. It's trying to build a coherent narrative from an overwhelming flood of information. Sometimes, it just gets the details wrong. It might attribute the source of a story, blending a movie with a real event. This happens to all of us, in subtle ways, all the time. And that makes me wonder, have you ever experienced this? Have you argued with a friend over a shared memory, with both of you absolutely certain you're right? Or have you ever realized a story you've been telling for years couldn't have happened the way you remembered? Share your experience in the comments below. It's fascinating to see how common these memory glitches are. Conclusion: the beautiful flaw. So yes, your memories might be fake, At the very least, they probably aren't the perfect recordings you imagine. They are more like impressionistic paintings than crystal-clear photographs, capturing the feeling and emotion of an event, but often fuzzy on the objective details. But maybe that's not something to fear. This malleability isn't just a flaw. It's a testament to the incredible complexity of the human brain. It allows us to learn, to update our beliefs, and to integrate new experiences. It can even allow us to heal by smoothing over the sharpest edges of trauma over time. Realizing that memory is a reconstructive story, not a factual record, is a humbling experience. It invites us to be less certain about our past, more forgiving of others' recollections, and more curious about the intricate processes in our own minds. Your memories don't define you as a fixed record. Instead, you are the storyteller, constantly weaving and reweaving the tapestry of your life. And that, in itself, is a story worth remembering.